you so much for taking your time to come here. We're going to go through a short presentation. We'll kind of give you a little bit of context of why this matters, and then how it's linked to strength training, and then a Q&A so that we can have a conversation of a few different things. If there's anything that you feel you may not want to say out loud, we also have a QR code that you can send questions in anonymously. And you have any questions for us after, please talk to us as well. Yeah. And I think Jade would agree. If you would like to stop us at any point, I think at least sometimes you have it in the moment, you want to say something, I'm open to you just letting me know. And we can just...
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So hi everyone, I'm Jade. A little bit about me. I'm a personal trainer. I'm also a nutritionist. I've been with T-Squared for about a month, but I've been coaching for about 4 years. In a previous life, I was actually in corporate, so in retail, fast fashion, but I made a switch after COVID and have not looked back since. So I primarily work with women in the age group of 40 to 60. So it's a very big passion of mine to help women feel better and develop not just a good relationship with themselves, but with exercise, nutrition, so that you feel good, look good, and can really move through this period of your life in a way that, feels good. And yeah, that's it. Nervous.
That's good. Thank you. Thanks, Jade. So my name's Arun. I've been in this I've been passionate about health, wellness, and medicine for over 10 years. I initially I studied biomedical science to understand the body a lot better and how medications work within the body with different diseases. I got a qualification as a personal trainer because I was interested in fitness and how that works with the body. Then I applied to medicine because I felt that we needed to put wellness into practice with doctors, because maybe some of you have noticed or have had moments where your doctor isn't really able to prescribe anything else other than the medication or the surgeries that they have available to them. So I've been interested in this idea of lifestyle medicine. How do you prescribe lifestyle for various medical conditions, both for recovery of chronic diseases, but also prevention as well? And as Varun kindly mentioned, one of the founding members of the Lifestyle Medicine Society, where we are trying to bring up this ecosystem of thinking about lifestyle as medicine. So exercise as medicine, nutrition as medicine, sleep as medicine, and so on. So that would be the context for some of the things that I'll be talking about. So Varun already mentioned a little bit T-Squared. Yes. Anything else you want to know? That's it. Okay. Okay, good. And just one thing. So in context, we run a program for different types of people, mainly women at the moment, also within about 40 to 60, where we get a doctor's recommendation on health screenings and medical conditions, and how do we personalize a program with dietitians, personal trainers, coaches, counselors to create a very clear program specifically for your condition. And so that's what I work on. So some of the things that, like I said, that I mentioned is some of the findings that we've had in the last 2 years of running it as well. So I'll start off with the why, and then Jade will go through the how and why the strength training itself and how to get it done. And so when we think about why and we think about hormonal changes, there are a few ways to think about it. And I don't have enough time to go through the whole, all of it, but I think we can look at it in two different ways. So we can think about the menstrual cycle itself as, if you know, estrogen and progesterone. So they are cyclical in most people, and in different ways. They may be irregular, but that's something that can be due to many different things. But essentially, we think about estrogen and progesterone. Okay, so that goes on throughout your life after puberty. And then we start getting to a point where something that it's a little more about what we're talking about today, which is the menopausal transition. So if you've ever heard of perimenopause, which is the period before menopause being 12 months, going 12 months without a period consecutively, this perimenopause period is when a lot of women, maybe, mostly above 40, 1 out of 100, maybe below 40, start to see a decrease in several hormones. So often talked about estrogen, but there are other hormones that also do reduce during this period. Can be a mix of because of perimenopause and menopause, but also aging as well. So there is a mix of both. And there's a general, sometimes you may have seen doctors who may say, no, it's not perimenopause, it's aging. Well, it could be both. And so that's why we need to think of it as what are the possibilities here. So estrogen is one of them. Estrogen starts to drop over time, and there's a fluctuation in your 40s and 50s, depending on where you are in terms of menopause, which is why sometimes when we think about blood tests, it's very hard to actually find where it's actually dropping because it can fluctuate throughout the years, throughout the months. Um, Progesterone also drops, actually, maybe even a little earlier. Testosterone, not often talked about in women, which can affect muscle mass, bone density, mood, and sex drive as well. So it can affect over time. And then melatonin. So if you're finding sleep difficulties as you get older, it's also possibly because of melatonin as well. So there are several hormones that may be changing over time. There's some things that you can improve and reverse, and other things we're thinking about how do we manage with lifestyle. These are some of the very common symptoms of perimenopause. And so people talk about, hot flashes, mood changes, difficulty sleeping. But with a lot of my clients, it goes a lot longer than that. And this list is not even probably the full list of what could happen. You start telling stories and be like, "Is my ears are ringing? Could this be it? Could be, my eyes are dry, I'm waking up, could that be it?" At this point, we also don't have enough research, which itself is horrible, considering how many people in our population actually experience this. We have a lot of things that we have more research on for 5% of the population than we do at 50%. So we are learning more, but generally the list can go for very long. So in general, if there's something that you're feeling that you're not very sure of that is affecting your life, I would recommend you to see a doctor to find out what that could be. But it can be a little tricky because a lot of doctors can be dismissive, unfortunately. I do work with a few that are not and actually focus on these things. But yeah, so just a thought. It can be a lot. It can be up to 20, 30 things. And so let's get closer to why strength training matters. When it comes to long-term health, due to these different hormonal changes, you have to think about cardiovascular health. So things like the risk of a stroke and a heart attack. People say that men are more likely to get a heart attack as you get older, but often this is not true. In the US, the rate of heart attacks may be at certain ages higher for women post-menopause. And also things like diabetes has a higher risk. Heart attack, having diabetes and having a heart attack has a higher risk for women than men having diabetes and getting a heart attack. So there is some link here that we're not fully sure of. It could be linked to a few of these hormones and maybe specifically estrogen, which may protect the blood vessels, which then you don't have the protection over time. So there are a lot of changes that increases the risk of cardiovascular health. So some of you might find cholesterol start to go up, blood pressure start to go up, and you're not really changed much of your lifestyle. And so that could be because of the menopausal transition or post-menopause. But that's why it's good to just check what could it be, because it may not be. It could be other things as well. But metabolic health, you find changes in weight and fat distribution. So you might find it harder to lose weight. You might find a transfer of fat distribution from your hips to your waist. So this is something that we've seen as well, which increases the risk of type 2 diabetes, which is why it's good to get health screenings at least once a year. Mental health, of course, if you're, due to mood changes, maybe where you are in your life, difficulty sleeping, and also other symptoms like hot flashes and pain, especially joint pain in Singapore is the most common symptom of perimenopause and menopause, unlike maybe hot flashes in the US. So the things that we read, it's important to contextualize to also in Asia because it will be slightly different. And finally, musculoskeletal health. Does anyone know what osteoporosis is and how it affects you? Hopefully you know as much. So osteoporosis itself is the reduction of bone density, which happens, as you get older, maybe over time, you're more likely to break down bone than build it up. In all our lives, we're always breaking down bone and building it up. If we're training or we're getting, in our 20s, maybe in our 30s, the building is more than the breaking down. But that switch happens as you get older, and especially if estrogen drops, that breaking down starts to go faster and faster. So I think the main thing I just want to take away is that the risk of a fracture is higher, way higher in women post-menopause than men at the same age. So it's something that if you can tell any other woman that you know, that you care about, I would say just think about bone fractures. and because it is preventable to some extent through lifestyle and medication, but really important. So then this goes to the question, the importance of strength training itself. So I'm just going to ask Jade a few questions that maybe some of you might have in your mind, and then after that we'll go through some of the other aspects as well. So I think one of the questions that I get very often is, we're talking about strength training here, but what are the different types of training that can be beneficial for women experiencing perimenopause and postmenopause as well?
Mm-hmm. I think that if we have to say that there's an optimal way to train, it's definitely with resistance training or lifting weights. And what I've experienced with a lot of clients that come to me in this age group is that they feel a bit scared or nervous to carry weight because of lots of different messaging that has happened throughout our lives about lifting weights, perhaps the dangers of lifting weights. However, we know now with research that the most important thing that we can do is to build as much muscle mass as we can, particularly after the age of 30. After the age of 30, every decade, we lose about 5% of our muscle mass naturally. So the best way to prevent this and to protect our bodies and to kind of retaliate, if you like, against that is to try and build as much muscle as we can. So load-bearing activities are super important. I think most of you train here with the trainers, so you're all lifting weights and lifting weights progressively, getting heavier, being more challenged by the weights that you're lifting, and not being scared of lifting heavy. I think a lot of women are really frightened of lifting heavy, and I guess the analogy that I always make is that most women have children. Most women are carrying their kids who are 15, 20, 25, sometimes 30 kilos in one arm. And yet they come to the gym and they're scared to lift like 7 or 8 kilos. And it's phenomenal. Like when you say, hey, but like you lift your kids right now. Oh yeah, okay. I think you can lift a little bit heavier. So not being scared to lift heavy, not being scared to build a little bit of muscle mass. This is also going to be incredibly protective for your bones as well. I do harp on a lot about the importance of resistance training, but cardiovascular training is also important too. We know, as Dr. Arun said, that heart health can be compromised, cholesterol can increase. So doing some cardiovascular work will greatly help your heart health. It will also help you with your lifts in the gym as well. We know more that if you're more strong with your cardio, you're going to be able to lift a little bit heavier. You can push intensity in the gym as well. So ideally, number one, resistance training. And then number two, if you can add on a little bit of cardio, best case.
Because I do sometimes get questions about, what if I put on too much muscle?
Okay, I've never experienced anyone saying that they've put on too much muscle. Okay, it's unlikely that you are going to put on a huge amount of muscle mass. Women tend to struggle to put on muscle mass in the gym, and you would have to be training very hard and very heavy, very consistently for a very long period of time in order to be able to build very significant amounts of muscle. And if you ask me, if the option is having a little bit more muscle but being protected as I age, I would much rather that option than being weak or potentially falling and suffering from a bone fracture. So I think when we look at the options, it's like, oh, I don't mind a little bit of extra muscle. And I think from an aesthetic point of view as well, something that has been really missed is that unless we have muscle mass, our body is not going to look the way many of us want it to look. A lot of women come in saying, I want to feel a little bit more toned, or I lost weight, but then my body still doesn't look the way that I want it to look. And that's because we don't have the muscle mass. So when you are resistance training with a program that is focused on the areas that you want to grow, you're going to have a better look and feel as well. And you're going to be metabolically healthier as well, which is also super important. So please don't ever be scared of lifting weights. It's unlikely that you're going to get too muscular. And if you do get a little bit more muscle in an area that you don't like, your programming can change. You don't have to keep building that particular area. You can move on to something else as well. So that's such an important part of the relationship that you build with your trainer, and being really transparent in terms of your goals, and then working on a program that is suited specifically for you.
So I think all that is great. And I think the question sometimes is there any specific types of exercise that can be helpful based on resistance training itself?
Yeah, sure. I think a very traditional kind of bodybuilding style training program is going to be excellent because it has squats, it has like deadlifts, hinges, pressing, pulling, lunges, some rotation work. All of the functional movements that we actually do in real life that we can load in the gym are going to help us build muscle, are going to also help us perform well in our everyday life too.
And I think you made a point about preventing falls.
Yes.
So falls are having osteoporosis or even low bone density, that can cause fractures on its own, unfortunately. But falling, of course, can increase the risk, and that is quite a significant can be a significant problem in many ways. So when we think about training, yeah, it's getting stronger, and also just making sure you're balanced, and also that's why having a variety of training to make sure that you're always kind of fall proof for the rest of your life. And my mission, I would love to try to get people to be fall proof forever. And so we are thinking both on ourselves, but also in our houses as we get older. How can we make things less hard on ourselves? So that's really important.
Actually, I've got another point. Do you guys like diamonds? Most women like diamonds, okay? You need to think about your bones like diamonds. Diamonds get better under pressure, okay? So basically before they're like put under pressure for however many thousands, I don't know much about diamonds, but they get better, they get stronger, they get better quality. Your bones are exactly the same. The more pressure that you can apply to your bones, the stronger they're gonna get. So treat your bones like the diamonds and the precious, precious, precious stones that they are. Lift heavy and get them really, really strong, okay?
Yeah, because I think there's a misconception that if you use it, you might then cause the fracture. That is possible if you're already at a point where you are really at a low bone density. But what we see is that impact. So sometimes even hiking, slow jumping can actually improve. It kind of signals to the bone that it can improve. So that's where. And also looking at osteoporosis societies across the world, even if you've had a previous fracture, it is still recommended in some forms to engage in this training. But it's always good to speak to your doctor and also with a qualified health fitness professional to kind of create that program initially. So I guess we talked about, so there's a bunch of physical elements of physical benefits of strength training. What do you think are based on your experience, what are the emotional and mental aspects of the training?
Well, I think we know that training and exercise gives us endorphins, okay? So naturally, as you mentioned, like our hormones might be doing some interesting acrobatics that we can't control, which can affect our mood. Something that we know for a fact does improve our mood is exercise, okay? Many of you may have experienced that great feeling that you feel right after you have a really great lifting session or you really enjoy a session in training. They are endorphins. It's your body saying, yes, you're doing a great thing. So the endorphins you get after training, phenomenal. Okay, we know sometimes you have a bad day, you come for training, you feel a little bit better. Okay, so this is like a natural kind of high that we can get. And I think in terms of just like from a psychological point of view, a lot of women come in feeling like they're not strong. A lot of women come in, oh, my core is weak, or I can't lift, or a lot of these kinds of things. And they're so much stronger than they are. And usually within a couple of sessions, women turn around and say, oh, I'm so much stronger. Oh, I can't believe I lifted that. So that feeling of empowerment, that feeling of confidence that comes with the gym, that feeling of knowing that if you need to lift something heavy, you don't need to wait for someone to come and lift it for you. You can lift it yourself. And then I think the other big piece that we haven't really spoken about a lot is just the confidence in our body. And this is something that a lot of women experience declines when their body starts to change a little bit. We know for a fact if you are lifting, your body composition will improve. If you're lifting well, you're lifting consistently, your fat is going to go down, your muscle mass is going to go up. You're going to look and feel better if this is something that you're interested in. Obviously, not everyone is interested in a body transformation, but if you are, building muscle mass, losing a bit of body fat from strength training is going to make you feel so much more confident in your skin. I've literally never had a client tell me that she was too strong. or that she didn't like how her body looked after she started resistance training. So it's really, I think a lot of it is letting go of the things that we were told growing up, that resistance training is going to make you big, it's going to make you bulky. It's not. It's going to make you stronger, it's going to make you more confident, you're going to feel more lean, you're going to feel firmer, and you're going to be really happy and confident that you're doing something that is good for your body as well. And sometimes just knowing that you're taking the steps in the right direction can give you a lot more motivation to keep going and to feel better. And I think that when women feel better, we improve the world, okay? We are better partners, we are better leaders, we are better mothers, sisters, everything. So yeah, I love strength training. I think it's so important. I think women deserve to take care of themselves and to really let go of all of the horrible, horrible fads that we've been told growing up as well.
So just before we get to Q&A, just one last question. So you mentioned about various things. So when it comes to, let's say, nutrition, which supports a large part of everything that's going on here, what are some of the protocols that you've recommended to others?
Okay, so I guess the first protocol is more a bit of like an education piece. A lot of women that come to me for both nutrition and for coaching in terms of fitness have a lot of incorrect perceptions about food. So spending some time and developing some nutritional literacy is going to do you the world of good. I guess letting go of a lot of the information that is floating around in the world about food being good, food being bad, things being healthy, things being unhealthy, can be very damaging for us. It doesn't allow us to nourish our body the way that we need to. So really spending some time to learn about the nutrient density of food, what sort of foods are good for us, even the caloric content of various foods as well. And it doesn't mean you have to go and weigh all your foods or be super, super hyper vigilant about calories and macros, but understanding the caloric value of different foods, how it makes you feel, is super, super important. So then you're going to be empowered to make the decisions about different types of food that you want to eat, rather than just, oh, I can't eat that because I'm scared, or I don't eat carbs. Carbs make me fat. It's not the case. Okay, we've evolved so much in terms of nutrition. There is still a lot of poor information out there, but I think we have a lot of really good information available. And it's up to us to really go and seek that out, to be proactive and to learn about food, relearn about food, essentially. I think the second is, sorry, I talk a lot about this, very passionate, is protein and having enough protein as well. I'm sure everyone has been exposed to, you've got to eat more protein, either from your trainer or from just information out in the world. Protein is so good for us. If we want to build muscle, we need to give our body the fuel that it needs to build the muscle, okay? So our body is literally made up of proteins. Every single tissue, every organ, everything in our body is made of protein. So we need to make sure that we have enough. It also serves to keep you satisfied after your meals. So if you're someone who tends to reach for a lot of snacks or salty, sugary, oily things, chances are you're probably not eating enough protein. Okay, so if you're loading your meals up on good lean proteins, you're going to be less snacky. It's going to help you manage satiety really, really well. And the last is helps you manage your blood sugar, which again can be problematic as we get a little bit older. Blood sugar, cholesterol, all of these things start to kind of go a little bit high. So we want to do everything that we can from a nutritional point of view. And there's one more, sorry, and that's fiber. And again, fiber is very, very important. It's important to get it from fruits, vegetables, and also complex carbohydrates. Fiber really helps with gut health. It will help you keep full. And it contains a lot of micronutrients as well, okay? I am not a huge fan of supplementing fiber. I much prefer my clients get it from whole foods so that they're getting, good quality complex carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables in all of the colors so that you get a good array of micronutrients as well as the satiety benefits of eating enough fiber and digestion. That's all.
Cool. That's very good. So that's all the questions I have. So please, if you have anything that you're thinking of, please let us know. We'll try to answer what we can. But also, if you would like to just type it in and think about it, you can put it in anonymously as well. Yeah.
saying that building muscle mass will help those hormones delay it, reduce it, or going up? That's my first question. Number two, I totally agree with you. Women tend to afraid of carrying heavy weights because of all fear of injuries or whatnot and lack of confidence. So how should you determine as an individual here how heavy should we be? Just these two questions.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
I'll get it. So when we think about the different hormones over here,
Yeah.
Nearly nothing we know truly reverses this other than hormone replacement therapy. So other than that, of course, we also don't have enough studies to really track women over time to understand it, but I would say strength training will not slow this down, but it will mitigate the effects over time. So if you invest early and build up that muscular reserve and bone density reserve, that decline may not have as much of an effect over time. But yes, no. So not directly on the hormones, unfortunately, not that we know of. If anything, it could possibly help with testosterone, but not that we know of for estrogen and progesterone. But yeah. All right.
Cool. And okay, so how heavy should you lift? This is a great question. It's kind of like how long is a piece of string? But it should, firstly, you want to make sure that you're lifting with good form and that you have a structured training program that you are following, okay? How heavy someone lifts should, I guess, initially be determined by a coach. If you are working with a coach, they will be able to dip your toes in slowly and then determine what your strength levels are. This is also important. It's important to kind of err on the side of caution when it comes to lifting. Firstly, that you're lifting with good form, that you're performing the movements well. When we don't perform the movements well, we're at risk of injury. When we're performing movements well, even under heavy load, we're not going to be able to, we're less likely perhaps. So work with the trainer if you're not sure. I think the biggest mistake that a lot of women make is that they don't feel the need to invest in a trainer or a coach to teach them the right form at the beginning. And so they tend to jump from class to class or many different types of fitness endeavors, shall we say, without getting the right guidance at the beginning. And then that's kind of when we start to see, oh, the body doesn't really change the way we want it to. I can't really lift that heavy at all, even though we probably have strength potential, and all the form is not great. So invest in a coach. A coach is going to be able to guide you. They're going to be able to teach you how to know how much you should lift as well. Yeah, I believe that it's an investment that everybody should make. And yes, I'm a coach, but I think after a certain period of time, then you will be able to have the autonomy to know what is the right weight for you to lift. I hope I answered that.
Yes.
So is bone density loss reversible or not? And then my second question is also, what is an appropriate number of times per week for resistance training in order to build muscles or maintain good muscle mass?
Yep. So for the first one, bone density. So it depends where you are in your life and what amount of bone density you have and whether you have certain medical conditions that are actually causing that loss as well. But what we've seen is that in many cases it can be reversible. It can be, because we can stimulate it to improve our bone, to improve its strength and also its density. But sometimes it really comes with also medication as well. So as much as I promote lifestyle as much as possible, there is still a component of medication that may help improve your bone density as well. But it is important for you to really know whether you have low bone density. It's to go for a scan to find out, because other than that, or if you've had family history of early fractures, then maybe you could make an assumption together with your doctor. But always good to have a test, maybe either go through a training program and then maybe check again, so that way you at least know whether is this evidence-based, is it really working for me. So like me.
I'm going to add something about bone.
Yeah.
I think on bone density as well, something that I talk about a lot is obviously the strength training piece, but also making sure that you're having enough calcium, vitamin D, and vitamin K so that you can absorb the calcium. Okay, typically I find with a lot of my clinical clients, they are not getting enough calcium in their diet. So this might be an opportunity as well. When you get your tests done, you get scans done. If you are someone who doesn't have great bone mineral density, you may need to look at something like some calcium supplementation. You can get it from Nutrition, but yeah, it's something that I would also perhaps suggest looking into.
How many times resistance training?
How many times of resistance training? Okay, we know that 2 to 3 times a week is fantastic, but there's no upper limit. I would say most women probably 4 to 5 is probably a max, depending on your capacity, your bandwidth, and how many other things you have happening in your life. But 2 to 3 is generally a very sweet spot in order for you to be able to build some good muscle mass. Yeah, and also see the body composition changes too.
Is weight training resistance training only, or other types of exercises that are resistant?
Yes.
So it can be both body weight and it can be weights itself, as we know, or resistance bands. So anything that provides any kind of resistance to the body. But another thing, if we're thinking about, there are a few areas here, then there's also things like impact training, which sometimes gets put under strength training as well. So jumps in a way sometimes could be also put under it, but yeah, no, it doesn't have to be just weights. Yeah.
No, yes.
Whatever. I think that's making you feel a little stronger. I think that's the whole thing. Always start from wherever you are and slowly start to add more.
I do have one thing to add. We do find that many women start with body weight training, but then it becomes a bit too easy. And if you feel like your body weight training has become a little bit easy, it's probably a good time to consider adding some extra weight so that you're constantly overloading the muscle, or you're constantly putting a little bit more intensity on the muscles to grow. If we don't add intensity to the muscles, they're actually not going to be put under stress, and they won't grow, get bigger, you won't get stronger as well. You might just feel you're kind of plateaued. So weights will usually you will usually get to a point where body weight is not quite enough, or bands are not quite enough, and that you need to graduate to something a little bit heavier.
Can blood tests, when you do your annual, can blood tests tell you about your bone density, or do you have to straightaway go for a bone density scan?
Yeah, it can't tell you about your bone density. Yeah.
Annual checkup package for age for women over 50 days. But I guess with a vitamin D decline, it will tell you or no.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, so even if things like low calcium or low vitamin D, I mean, you have to really find out through a scan. I think that's the best way to find out. But you're right, certain packages added in. Some doctors are recommending it earlier than depending on what your lifestyle is or what kind of health history you've had. So yeah, but you can ask for it. I think most will get it done.
DEXA scans.
It's a DEXA scan, yeah. So it's called a DEXA scan, and but there are different types of DEXA scans. So it's just important to speak to your doctor about which one might be best for you. Yeah. Any other?
So training with weights, complementing other forms of exercise, like regular trekking, Pilates.
Resistance training, as I said before, is going to get you stronger. So whatever else you choose to do outside of the gym, you're going to feel a lot more strong, a lot more empowered. I guess going back to the kind of movement patterns that I spoke about earlier, which were, I guess, the functional movement patterns. So things like squats, hinging, so bending down, turning, pressing, pushing, all of these movements are everyday movements. So if we get stronger and we're able to perform those under load, when we translate that to other activities, we're also going to be stronger. We will have more stamina. We will get less exhausted. You'll be able to go for a little bit longer as well.
Anything else? Anything else for that?
So when we are in that menopausal or perimenopausal stage, hormones are really haywire. So by doing strength training and exercising, will it cause the body to be in a more stress mode, and then therefore the symptoms are not balanced out? And then in terms of nutrition, what kind of nutrition should women experiencing these symptoms be taking to improve the symptoms
So the stress, okay, the stress part of it. So there's a lot of conversation around stress, chronic inflammation when it comes to this and how that's linked to exercise. So let's say you're having a hard time in your life in general, and then you're stressing, you're putting a level of stress with your exercise. I think it is irregardless of the perimenopause that actually over exercising at the wrong times uh, can be harmful to you. But I don't want to frame it that way. I don't think that we don't really see a very clear link of strength training adding to a stress, which then affects your hormones and also your symptoms. So let's say if one of your symptoms is joint pain, some would say that maybe exercise may help, others may say that it doesn't, but I think it's just important to try a few different things to see whether it improves these symptoms. And if you're thinking, okay, hopefully you're just doing enough so it doesn't affect your sleep too much. So you have to think, sometimes training early in the day might be better for you. For others, it might be slightly later. But if you try different things so that it doesn't make any of the symptoms that you're already having a little worse, then you kind of have to try. But we don't see that link as a.
And then at a nutritional level, as I mentioned earlier, I think the most important thing is to really understand how much food you need. Okay, so really having a bit of an understanding about calorie consumption, how much you need to maintain your current body composition, how much you might need if you want to lose weight, etc. This is really crucial. This underpins every other thing that you may hear. Okay, and second to that, I guess really building that required nutrition from whole foods. So we want to talk about things like our lean proteins. We want to talk about complex carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables, healthy fats. Give you some examples: less fried food, less salty sweet snacks, etc. We know that if your diet is really built up of a lot of fried foods, it's very heavy on the fats and the carbs, it will feel very different to switch to something that's more high in protein. But usually after 2 to 3 weeks of that switch, you will feel more satiated. You won't be reaching for those sweet and salty snacks, which a lot of women in this age group sort of say, I feel like I'm like a crazed raccoon and I can't stop eating snacks, or I don't eat much for lunch, but then I eat so much in terms of snacks and I can't control myself. The best thing that we can do is to try and build better quality main meals. Give yourself enough nutrition, fruits, vegetables, all of the things that we grew up that we were told to eat, that we may have like kind of stopped, or maybe you make your kids eat, but you don't eat, are the ones that you need to be doing. Yeah, exactly. You're all smiling, I know. So lots of fruits, vegetables. I think another fear that I hear around fruits is that people are scared to eat fruits because of the sugar. The sugar in fruits is nowhere near, it's not a concern for anyone. As opposed to the sugary, sweet, salty snacks that you're eating outside of the fruits as well. So fruits, vegetables, complex carbohydrates, so grains, rice, millet, noodles, breads, even pastas, whatever you like, okay, with lean proteins at every meal. All of these things are going to keep you full, give you the fuel that you need, help you build muscle mass, and also help you with your body composition as well, which is a really massive, massive concern for a lot of clients that are coming to us.
Anything else right now? No? Okay. Well, okay, cool. Thank you so much for your time. If you have anything else, we're right here. You can ask a few questions. But yeah, hope it was useful.
What do you think of one fun food a day?
Thank you.
One, sorry?
Like one fun food a day?
One, I think that it's better to look at your entire nutrition. Like one fun food can mean very different things for different people, right? One fun food could be a whole like fast food meal. Okay, for someone else, it might be a small piece of chocolate. So I think it depends on the context of your entire nutrition. I operate by the belief that there should be no foods that are not allowed, okay? But we should be thinking about focusing on whole foods, healthier foods, less fried food, more proteins, more fruits, more vegetables. And if you're doing that consistently, then you can probably have a little bit of chocolate, or you can probably have something else. But hyper-focusing on having the fun food without actually thinking about what you should be eating most of the time is kind of a bit counterproductive to me.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, I think most women, they're looking at fun food as if a piece of cake, and maybe a donut, just a piece of donut. So what you're saying is, if a total calorie a day is this much, so you have to work within that calorie and can have one that piece of fun food, correct?
Yeah, in theory. Yes, totally. In theory, I was like, oh, that felt a bit uncomfortable. No, but yes, you are correct. If you're within your calories, but I think the caveat here is that if you are a very petite woman, your calorie count, your calorie allotment for the day may not be very high. Okay, so it's, for example, if you are a very petite woman, and a lot of the women I train are maybe like 5 foot, very small, very like slender, and their calorie allotment for the day is 13 or 1400 calories for maintenance because they're sedentary and they're not moving a lot, and then they have a piece of cake that is 600 calories, that's half your calories for the day. So I think it's really relative. What I will say is that if you build up a little bit more muscle mass, you get a little bit stronger, you're going to be able to have a little bit more flexibility in terms of your diet as well. I think it really depends. It's very hard to say with certainty or like as a blanket rule, but I think calories always matter, and then looking at, you know, what you want to introduce and how, and whether it falls in a reasonable amount within that. I can't even give you a percentage because it really depends. Yeah, it really, really depends.
I mean, the goal for exercising for women in their 20s and 30s is going to be very different from women in their, let's say, 40s, 50s, 60s, who's going through the whole, hormonal changes and everything. I mean, since the topic of today's session is about the whole, exercise and cholesterol, what would be your advice in terms of women in that age group where we are going through the whole, hormonal changes? How should we focus our exercise, our discussion with our trainers, and the programs that we go through to make our life better?
I think there's a bit of a misconception in terms of the fact that we need different programming at different phases of our life. Ultimately, programming can remain pretty similar for most people. So anyone who's trying to sell you like a menopause exercise plan or anything that, I don't know what your thoughts are, but my thoughts are we train most people the same way within the limitations or within what that person is capable of doing. Okay. What we do find sometimes with women in their 40s, 50s, 60s is they may have some limitations. It might be injury related. It could be pelvic health concerns. It could be a lot of women with frozen shoulders. We would work around that as we would with any other client. Okay, so I think it's totally okay, and I think your coaches are comfortable with you talking about these things, and they are by and large trained to deal with these conversations with sensitivity and with care. But we train the same way. Yeah, essentially we all train the same way. Yeah.
So I have a few friends who have frozen shoulders. I think they're all going through hormone changes. Can they still train? Because they're all like taking a break. I was like, no, I think you can still train. You should train. Do you think? Right?
I'm not a doctor. What are your thoughts?
But have your clients come into you and you still continue training with them on one shoulder, or do you? What has changed if they continue training?
Firstly, seek medical advice and make sure that your doctor has given you clearance.
Get a referral to a physiotherapist who then signs off. 2 people sign off. After that, it's kind of you should at least clear it up with 2 people, and then after that, hopefully you have a trainer that understands what frozen shoulder is, and then I think it just depends on your mobility at that point and the pain that you may have. So it will be dependent.
But it would be possible to train other parts of the body?
Yes. Yeah. So it's not. Yeah. It would just depends on how that affects the shoulders at that point. But, yeah.
Like shoulder, I couldn't lift up more than this. I had a whole year of physiotherapy and shots, and steroids and everything. I can lift it up. Now the doctor is prescribing neck and shoulder and back muscle movement. There's nothing medically they can do further for me,
Yeah.
but shoulder and back. So that's what I'm doing.
Yay.
We can go on from our end. I just wanted to step in for adding something along that question and plugging both of them and what we're doing. So T Squared has an entire physio vertical. So if you're looking for physio and other services, do inquire. That's being built out. Dr. Arun's focus is kind of guiding all of you and others through this journey in terms of recovery, physio, doctors, medical advice, and just pointing you in the right direction, which obviously includes training with Jade. Like I mentioned at the start, we also have Oscar Health, Ada Medical. Dr. Arun has clients that have gone to Osler and then come to T Squared. And what you'll see coming out in the next 2 weeks are packages where we have screening, blood work, or consultations, training plans, consultations or blood work in the middle of the set, like the package, and then again at the end. So you've got both medical evidence on the results that you're getting, but also in this exact point of having a doctor be part of your journey. And so it could be for health reasons, or it could be for injury reasons for me, or just overall longevity goals. So this exact approach and getting the consultations and having someone guide you on who the partners could be is what both Dr. Arun and T Squared are doing. So this is something that we'll be building upon. Sorry, back to the Q&A.
Let's go. Anything else for now?
What's your view on intermittent fasting and possible?
What is the objective of intermittent fasting? I think it all comes down to like what your objective is.
Overall wellness and weight loss.
Okay. In terms, if your goal is weight loss, any calorie deficit will work ultimately. Okay. A calorie deficit or having the right amount of energy in your system to do what you want your body to do is the number one principle that every single diet follows. Intermittent fasting is not magical. It just helps some people create a calorie deficit. It can be very helpful for some clients because it allows you a window of time to consume the correct amount of calories. But it can also not be very effective if that causes you additional stress and it causes you to eat a little bit more in that window and you're not able to stick to your calorie deficit. So can it be great for some people? Yes. Can it be not so great for some people? Yes. Ultimately, the diet that we choose should align with our life and be something that we can adhere to. So if it's something you can adhere to, great. If it's not something you can adhere to, there's many, many, many other diets that you can actually look to that may suit your lifestyle, your preferences a lot better as well.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Shall we? Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.